Hi there, it's Christy Brock. Some of you know me as Miss Christy, or Miss Brock, and Miss Broccoli. However you know me, you know that I love to make things, art, and teach about art. And one of the things I use to create art is pottery. And you might not know this, I lived in Arizona for a while and on the Apache Reservation, and I had the pleasure of learning about pottery and their traditions and the way that they draw on their pottery and how it's very symbolic and special to them. So I'm going to read you a story. It's not really a story, it's kind of more of a poem, but it has a story in there, and it's called When Clay Sings by Bird Taylor, illustrated by Tom Bahati. When Clay Sings. Dedicated to the ancient artists who created these designs and the museums which preserve them. There are deserts, hillsides where ancient Indian pottery still lies half buried in the sand, and lizards blink at other dusty lizards that were painted on those pots thousands of years ago. Now, Indian children make games searching for bits of clay where they once somebody's bowl or mug or cooking pot or dipper. Their parents look at what they find and tell them, remember to treat it with respect. It's so old. They say that every piece of clay is a piece of someone's history. They even say it has its own small voice and sings in its own way. So the children touch the pieces carefully as they kneel there in the hot, dry sand, listening for whatever voice a broken pot might use. A wind noise? A sound noise? A voice like a far bird's cry? Sometimes they look long enough, and if they're lucky enough, they can fit 4 or 5 pieces together in a way that you do a jigsaw puzzle. And suddenly they see a perky, wide-eyed bird looking at them, surprised. Maybe the bowl with the bird was dropped by some other Indian child who chased a rabbit near the same rocks. When they find the bowl, and it isn't broken, the children can pretend that they've just eaten from it and that they're sitting by some campfire on a deerskin blanket, and it's then, not now, and they speak their older language. But they don't need words to know that there were speckled bugs and spotted bugs and bugs with shiny wings and pinchy bugs and jumpy bugs and bugs that had 1,000 legs that walked through grass. They know that the molding of a lump of clay has always been a slow, gentle work. No hurrying, no rushing. Hands that shape the earth this way have time to know the cool touch of the sand. Women then must have spoken to the earth as they took the clay out. They must have sung special songs for shaping bowls and polishing it and baking it so it would be strong enough to last long after that tribe was gone. Once somebody sitting on the ground outside a high, cold cliff house thought, I'll make this bowl as pretty as I can. And she painted what she liked the most, stars and moon, a sun and a whirlwind. Was the sun shining as she worked? Were her own brown naked children playing near? Was there a skinny dog? Was the smell of cooking in the air? Did a man come back from hunting and shake his head? And on another day, did she paint that hunter too? Sometimes children may have said, but in that other language, Mama, make a bowl with pictures of big animals for me, big, furious creatures that I'll someday hunt. So she drew mountain lions and wildcats and even a man wrestling a bear. Or is it a bear wrestling a man? The colors are still bright, the reds as deep as sandstone cliffs, the browns as tans as the shade of the desert earth, black and white, shiny as the stones, polished by the waters in high mountain streams. There were 1,000 shapes to draw, horned toads, lizards, butterflies, turtles, and a beautiful leaping fish, and deer and mountain goats and antelopes that flashed across the canyons, always faster than the boys who knew their trails and followed them among the rocks. They even drew the scariest things they could think of. Call them monsters, call them night spirits, call them anything. Children made them up today as they still have the same scary looks in their eyes. Many a child must have eaten rabbit stew for supper out of the bowls with rabbits painted on them. Here's a hunter who used a fine long net for catching rabbits, but what rabbit couldn't jump through a hole? This child was sick, and they called the medicine man to cure him. What magic is he using? What special chants and dances and whispered words and feathered wands may have helped a boy get well again? And did medicine man make medicine from dry roots and flowers and wild yellow grasses taste like pink medicine tastes now? Indians who find this pottery today say that everything has its own spirit, even a broken pot. They say that clay remembers the hands that made it. Does it remember the cornfields too, and the summer rains, and the ceremonies that held lifetimes together? Here are the masks and the costumes and the great dancing figures. Here is the flute player bent low over his song. The song had to be powerful enough to make the rain fall and the wind blow and the seed sprout in the dark earth. Songs had to be power enough to keep the warriors safe and lead the hunters to deer and make the summer always follow the winter and hold the sun in its proper path across the sky. And life kept moving on from tribe to tribe. They say that even now, when the wind sometimes finds one of those songs still in the clay and lifts it out and carries it down the canyon and across the hills, it's a small sound, always far away, but they say sometimes they hear it. Okay, and so this is called a kokopelli, and that's one of the most iconic. It can be seen on permanent cliff drawings in the areas of Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. And if you like this book, there's another, this one was actually a storybook. I kind of got it confused with another book I'll have to read next time. But there's another book that's really thick, and it's called A Single Shard, and it's about one of the oldest pieces of pottery that's ever been found, and it's in Korea. And it's really neat because in that book, it's the best book I've ever read about what the process of making pottery is. But the ancient guys and the potters in that book, they actually had a song they would sing. It was called a throwing song, much probably like the women and the men who made the pottery. They would have a throwing song, and at a certain spot, they would know they were supposed to be forming the bowl at that certain spot because they had kick wheels where they had to kick, like riding a bike, and with their hands make it. They didn't have electric wheels. And so there are pottery songs, and they were mostly for helping the potters stay on task, so they would be at the exact same time in the exact same spot when they got in the song. And so there's many interesting books, but A Single Shard is one of my favorite pottery books. Do you know anything about pottery or have a favorite pottery book? If so, when you see me, let me know. I hope you have a good night.